we're going to be getting up here on the siege tower, and it seems like, what? This is super easy? What? Okay. Hello there. Hello and welcome back to the Ronin, and, well, we have made peace with the Crusade, which is actually fantastic for me, because I've been doing a little bit of off-screen, well, besieging of their stuff. And basically this is what has happened. I took, obviously, Ortengard in one of the previous episodes, and we now also have control over Kimli Castle and Uzek Castle, which I managed to take in my off-screen time. Obviously, these were just absolute stomps, nothing to worry about there. I basically just, you know, took down the walls and then went in for an auto-resolve. It just took time more than anything, which obviously is a pretty big commodity at this point in the game, to be honest. I personally don't like using that significant amount of a time investment in these kinds of sieges or anything like that. Generally, I don't like doing that when I'm actually recording, because when I'm recording, it just takes way too long, in my opinion. But that's the thing. Taking down the walls when it's a town, super worth it, but taking down the walls when it's a castle, not so much. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're probably going to try and attack this guy if I can get him into a battle without the nearby army attempting to intercept. I think I might be able to at least get this guy, the one that doesn't have a mount. That would probably make the most sense. Anyway, I found a better way to recruit units from the Tetsojin. So if some of you are playing alongside me and you're also using the Tetsojin mod, which I'd highly recommend, by the way, I think it's fantastic. It seamlessly integrates with the game, at least from my experience, and generally this is the way that I did things. Alright, so I'm just going to pause the game real fast. This is not going to take that long. It's going to take like 30 seconds to just explain what I was doing. Now, obviously, as I've said before, recruiting units and recruiting volunteers is done by your companions in your army, basically. That's the main recruitment force doing all of their stuff, because they're also going to level up people in their respective armies, and then you're going to be able to take those units away from them and then swap them around for things that you have in your garrisons already, which is actually fantastic. Now, here's the thing. This particular strategy involves doing this. Okay, recruit from these 3 points, then just go back into Akuson and literally just wait for some time until the next recruitment phase has begun. In other words, when you next see your companions recruit units from here, then once again you go from Akuson to the nearest village, to the next nearest village, and then you go back to Akuson once again. That, in my opinion, is probably the most efficient way of gaining Tetsojin units while still maintaining a somewhat fair distance away from the potential front lines of any battles. So, in my opinion, that's the way to go, because you're able to get a pretty significant amount of units. I mean, you can see here, this is my current party size. I have a massive amount of units from the Tetsojin, purely from that strategy. That is it. That is the only way that I have been recruiting Tetsojin units. I have been just running around in circles, basically, in our own territory, just going from, you know, point A to point B to point C, and eventually it has been enough. It has been enough to kind of get me to leave our territory and actually do something for once. Now, we are only at war against the Botanians. I'm starting to very much not very like the Botanians, personally. Ooh, wait a minute. It seems like their army has disbanded, but there is another army over here. Okay, wait a minute. Can I get this guy? Yeah, I can get this guy. There's a whole bunch of them, actually, that I should be able to catch, because they're all injured in some way or another. Oh, look at this guy. He's got a bunch of Tetsojin. That's nice. All right. So basically what I've also been doing is pretty much just leaving a lot of the prisoners for my own people to take, because I think they also have their own... I'm not entirely sure how much this really impacts them or anything like that, but I think they have their own... shall we say, their own funds and their own amount of money that they have to take care of, and so on, when thinking about recruiting units or thinking about buying food or whatever the case may be. And so in my opinion, it's a good idea to sometimes let them just take all the prisoners, sometimes let them take all the loot, because I don't know whether they actually take the loot, but I have so much loot in my inventory right now, it basically, in my opinion at least, makes no difference whatsoever at this point. I could literally not take loot from the next 20 battles or so, and I would still have above 5 million gold. I don't think there's anything that I could really do, with the exception of persuading an enemy lord to join our faction, that would seriously impact my monetary situation. So we should be absolutely fine. I mean, that's the point. I do have, even if we were to spend 5 million, let's say, on a potential persuasion attempt, it doesn't really matter, because I have such a significant amount of loot in my inventory right now that I would then be able to sell that at various towns, and I would be able to gain back at least about 500,000 or so in a quick amount of time. It wouldn't be that much. It really depends on how the marketplaces are currently doing, because of course that's all that it is. You know, it's like supply and demand sort of thing. If people in the marketplaces do not have a good amount of cash, so if they don't have like 50 to 70,000, which is usually what they have around this time, then you're going to be a bit out of luck, and you're not going to be able to get back your money that quickly. However, at this point, usually they do. Usually they have a pretty significant amount, so you shouldn't have to worry about it, but generally, that's all. That's all that you really need to be concerned about if you do indeed attempt to persuade. And I don't know how I was stopped by such a small little shrub in the way there. Oh well, never mind. Okay, so yeah, obviously my forces will probably be able to defeat these guys relatively simply. I have a lot of Tetsojin, but one of my armies doesn't have very good units, because I had to kind of compromise a little bit. And usually what I'd like to do is I would like to take as many like tier 4, tier 5 units as I can possibly get my hands on from the garrisons. But recently I've noticed that I don't have that many of those left over. It seems like my trainers in the garrisons have been a bit slacking, and I'm not entirely sure why that is, because they should automatically do their thing, you know, thanks to the improved garrisons mod. Oh, actually, wait a minute. Speaking about mods, actually, I wanted to touch upon something. I think someone commented something like, imagine what this playthrough would have been like without Bannerlord tweaks. Well, that's the thing. You can actually check out a series where I don't use Bannerlord tweaks, because I hadn't found a working version at the time, and it's the Duelist series. The Duelist series was one that I produced before this one, I believe, or maybe it was one of the most recent ones at the very least. One of the most recent series, and in my opinion, one of the most enjoyable, because in that we don't use a shield. We focus on using a one-handed. We don't use a horse. We generally tend to run around really, really fast. And we had a great deal of fun doing it. Now, bear in mind that obviously there's no Bannerlord tweaks installed in that playthrough, and we are able to get a pretty significant amount of skill in the ones that we actually concentrated on. Obviously, you know, you're not going to be able to get all skills to such a high level or anything like that. But that's the entire reason why we have Bannerlord tweaks here, because I personally feel like the leveling speed in the native base game is a little bit lacking. I feel like it should be a little bit faster. Obviously, that's just my personal opinion. You can you know, think whatever you want about that, but generally, I feel like Bannerlord tweaks just makes the game just that much more enjoyable, you know, because while I had a huge amount of fun playing the Duelist series, I feel like it might have been even better if we had Bannerlord tweaks installed at that time as well. I know some people think it's cheating or something like that to have Bannerlord tweaks. I don't think so personally, but you know, as I say, opinions and all that, you know, you can think whatever you want, but generally I would say that something that just makes it a little smoother, the whole progression of things, and obviously adds a whole bunch of quality of life improvements as well, like for example providing you with a little bit more from tournaments and so on. That's obviously something pretty nice. Bear in mind, however, that most of the Duelists' initial starting money was actually gained by doing tournaments, because there's a perk in the one-handed tree, I believe, that is to do with gaining extra renown, or yeah, I think it's extra renown. Yeah, extra renown from doing tournaments, and or was it extra influence? I'm not entirely sure, but it was basically something that where you'd gain extra something or other, an extra resource of some kind that was pretty important. And yeah, so basically I just did my whole did my whole sort of combat around that in the early stages of the series, because I didn't really want to do the same thing that I did in the Iron Man challenge, or the hardcore challenge, or whatever you want to call it, one life challenge. And I didn't want to concentrate on doing trade, because there are a number of different ways that you can make a significant amount of cash in the game. And obviously smithing is the most powerful, but it is the most imbalanced, and as a result it's... Yeah, I mean, there are some people that say it's alright to use it because it's in the game, and there are others that say that it's not alright because it's basically just generating money out of thin air. And yeah, that's true, absolutely. And so that's the reason why I decided, oh, you know what, maybe I'll just do some trading. And that's going to keep me relatively safe as well, because obviously if I have one life in the game, and if I die, then that's it. That's game over, you know? That's the whole premise of the Iron Man challenge / hardcore challenge or whatever. And, you know, so I decided to do trading, and I gotta say I wasn't a big fan of it. You know, I love trading personally. I think trading in this game is actually super fun. But I would not do it again. I would not do that again, because it doesn't really provide the most stimulating viewing experience either, which I gotta say was a bit of a regret of mine, because I personally feel like if we had taken slightly more risks and gotten stuck in a little bit more fervently to various situations, I feel like that could have been much more engaging, rather than what it was, which was basically just me running around and trying to trade as much as I possibly could, which in my opinion is obviously the smarter way to go about things, but probably not the most fun. So yeah, that's the reason why in the Duelist series I decided completely against trading, and I decided not to do trading whatsoever. And I went for tournaments instead, and obviously without Bannerlord tweaks, I'm not going to be getting an extremely large amount of cash from it. And yeah, so it generally was a pretty fun experience, to be honest. I liked it a lot. But yeah, going back to the original comment, that's basically what I'm saying here. Bannerlord tweaks is an optional thing. It is not required to have fun in a series, but it does make things a little bit smoother for me as the producer of said series, because obviously it makes it easier for me to gain a slightly stronger army. It makes it easier for me to earn money, and generally adds a whole bunch, as I've said, of quality of life improvements as well. And all of these are very, very useful. Oh, hello there. What is this? Haha. You're very interesting, aren't you, sir? Okay, yeah, he's going to go in as soon as he gets another person. Yeah, look at that. He's going to go in right now, I would assume. No? Yeah, he's going in now. All right, okay. So we're not going to allow him to engage upon us right here. This is just an absolutely terrible thing for him to do. I think that in most cases, you really do not want to be heading in this kind of situation, because that's the point. I really wanted to try and do more damage to the garrison here, but I realized, you know what? I don't really want to risk my own army, my own army's health, that is, just for a couple of defenders in the garrison here. I personally feel like we should be really, really fine. I mean, look at this. I mean, I'm doing okay, you know? I'm doing okay. I mean, you can see the bar at the top there. The combat strength is quite obviously in our favor, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen. You could have a situation where you get murdered instantly, or you just get some kind of really bad thing happen, and in which case then you're going to be in hot water. And that was the reason why I wanted to try and almost guarantee, even more so, our victory. But we'll see what happens after this anyway. That's the point. What I've also been attempting to do is not do as many sieges in my off-screen time, because when I when I take those 2 castles, you know, when I took those 2 castles in Khuzait territory, each time I gave about 100 units. Yeah, 100 to the garrison. Oh yeah, someone actually did comment that I think the developers are actually thinking of adding something about that. They're maybe adding an option about that. I'm not entirely sure. I think you left a comment where they would, I think they or someone else was talking about it, and hopefully that's going to be added sometime soon. But we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe there's going to be a slight change to it. Maybe there's going to be some kind of option that we can tick or not, as the case may be. And personally, I feel like if the AI does that, I think it's fine. But obviously, if there's some people in your army that you yourself have given units to or something like that, then I feel like that might be a little bit too much, because if you're giving them specific units that you feel are going to be really good for you to continue your offensive push against the opponent, then they just randomly put in a whole bunch of the most highest tier 1s that they have, then you're losing a huge amount of power in one fell swoop. And that is obviously something that we need to have control over, in my opinion. Anyway, we're going to be getting up here on the siege tower, and it seems like, what? This is super easy? What? Okay. Hello there. Seems like these guys don't know what's about to hit them. Oh yes. Boom. Nice headshot. Can we get some more, please? There we go. Alright, we just need more of that. More of that, please. Could you just stand still for a real quick... never mind. He's in battle. He is very much trying to stay alive. Ah, that guy's also trying to stay alive. Very, very much so. Do you think I can get him? Nope. Not in a million years. You know, I wish I had a goblin glider right now. Just glide all the way over to those stairs, but no. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. If you know where the goblin glider is from, then, oh yes, props to you. Anyway, let's see if we can kill this guy. Oh, there's actually a lot. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I should have stayed back. I should have stayed back and used my... Oh, never mind. That guy murdered this guy. Look at it. Look at him. Look at him. He's just sliding down the stairs there. That's what you get, sir. That is what you get. All right, well, we're at 155 athletics. I don't think we're going to be getting to 175 that soon, at least. But it will be quite nice to see if we can get... maybe one-handed to the next level, and obviously crossbows still need to get leveled up. Even with Bannerlord tweaks, it's taking a huge amount of time to level that up, which is crazy in my opinion. Anyway, there you go, 6 deaths for us right there. And we have, wow, look at that. Look at that. We released so many of our vassals. That's actually crazy. That is going to really tip the balance back in our favor, or at the very least going to help us a little bit more than you would expect otherwise. Because here's the thing, every single time one of these guys is defeated, they basically take away, like, I don't even know, like 500 to 1,000 combat strength, at least in my opinion. I think that seems to be the case. I could be wrong about that, so don't quote me on it, but let's just take a quick look. Let's take a quick look at this. All right, so what am I doing here? Oh, I don't really care about Karenia Castle, to be honest. Thank you, just taking it, but I still don't care about it that much. And yeah, I haven't been on the voting in quite some time as well, by the way. So I'm not entirely sure why that is, but anyway. Okay, so yeah, I don't know whether you've noticed, but we've made peace with the Crusade as well, by the way. I don't think I needed to mention that really, because you already saw that we're kind of neutral with them right now. But the Britannians, they have 16,000. I think if I'm able to defeat that army that we've just seen there, they will lose about maybe 1,500 strength. I'm actually not sure whether it's 1-for-1 in terms of the ratio, or whether it's like 2-for-1 or whatever the case may be. So every single unit counts as a certain amount of combat strength or something. I'm not entirely sure, as I said. So we'll see what happens. But basically, if it was 1-for-1, that would mean that they have 16,000 something or other amounts of units in all of their garrisons put together. And obviously in their armies as well. Which I think actually would make quite a bit of sense. They have a lot of units. I mean, shall we say, they do have a lot of vassals, but they also have a lot of territory, and that territory is of course going to lend itself to having a massive amount of capacity, and you can see that right here. Look at this. It's absolutely insane. And bear in mind, I think they have many, many more towns than we do. But yeah, once the Khuzait see fit to declare war on us once again, I'm going to finish them off, because you can see here that they have, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 castles remaining, and they also just have 2 towns, which is perfect. So that's going to be a pretty swift victory for us right there. Okay, so I think my plan going forward is to assist this guy. That's my first that's my first port of call if he does end up getting caught, that is. Get him. Get him. Go, 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 go. Come on, Mr. Erenix. Yes, Mr. Erenix. Oh, wow, I'm actually faster than this guy. He must literally have, like, no cavalry. He is Lek after all, so he probably doesn't. Anyway, let's just take that prisoner, thank you, and then we'll move on. Alright, so bear in mind that after every battle we should really take a look at our forces, because I have so many people that can level up, as you can see right here, that it is very, very important to look at your people often. And what I've also been doing is a slight system in regards to leveling up the Tetsojin units. I'm not sure whether you've noticed that over the past couple of episodes, but basically what I've been doing is making it so that if there is an upgrade that is not a warhorse requirement, then I'll take that one. But if there is only a warhorse upgrade, then obviously I'll take that. But if I can avoid spending warhorses on random upgrades, then I will try to do that, even if they end up being better in the long run, because I just want to have the maximum tier of unit that I can get for that particular upgrade path. That's the main thing that I want to go for, because stats, in my opinion, raw stats, are just much more valuable than having a unit that is capable of using a mount, rather than someone that can only do that. Do you know what I mean? So if you have an archer, for example, that can be a regular archer or a horse archer, because that's generally how the Tetsojin are. They can either be a regular archer or a horse archer. And you have like a, I don't know, a Yari using infantry. They can only level up into Yari knights. And that's it. So unless you just don't want them to level up at all, and you literally just want them to stay as infantry rather than become cavalry, then that's obviously absolutely fine. But generally I would want them to be cavalry as much as possible. I want to see as many cavalry as I can get, and if that means that my archers have to stay on foot, then so be it, because otherwise, you know, we're losing out on raw stats, which is exactly the reason why I said that. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to go off to Lycaron. I might try to get a little bit of a battle with that large Battanian army going on, if we can lure them back here. Luring them back here is going to be extremely good for us to do, because that means they're going to be wasting their time, they're going to be wasting their cohesion, their food supplies. Bear in mind, by the way, that while I was besieging those Khuzait castles, I was actually down to 11 days worth of food, and I was very, very quickly running through all of that. So you could imagine that I was in a bit of a tough spot, because the nearby towns that I went to literally had nothing. Yeah, they had nothing in. They had nothing in the marketplaces or anything like that. So it was a bit touch and go, to be honest, because I was having to supply all of my friends as well in my army, because they obviously had no food either. So we were running through it very, very, very fast. Anyway, let's see if we can bait the large army towards us. I would assume that they're going to be coming somewhat quickly, but if they don't, then this is going to fall very fast. I mean, literally, Lycaron is not that difficult to take. I mean, generally, I could just head in there right now. I could literally head in there right now as a manual siege, and literally just go for it. Oh yeah, that's also something I should really mention. When I was doing those sieges in Khuzait lands, I tested out something. So obviously you know that I like to do auto-resolves when I'm off screen because it saves me time and makes it a little bit quicker and all that stuff. But generally, what I tested out was taking down the walls versus just doing an old-fashioned building the siege towers, building the battering ram, and then doing an auto-resolve. And I wanted to see the difference between the two, because both of the castles in question had pretty good garrisons. They had about 600, 700 units when I started the siege, and I thought, okay, well, this is going to be a pretty decent test, because they've got the same kinds of units and same sort of capacity and so on. So what I did was I took the walls down of one, went in for an auto-resolve, and then the next one I did not take the walls down, and instead I just, took them down in terms of, reducing their soldiers and then going in without the walls having been destroyed. And when I did that, the difference was pretty staggering. It was about triple the amount. So in other words, when I went in when the walls were down, I lost about 30 units. But when I went in when the walls were not down, but the siege equipment was up, I lost about 65, 70, and that is obviously to the Grim Reaper. Bear in mind that I'm not talking about wounded troops here. I'm talking about actual deaths. And so that really makes a huge difference. I feel like that is a pretty significant difference. And if you can spend the time, it's definitely going to be worth it to take down the walls. I mean, obviously, this is pretty obvious if you think about it. I mean, come on. Taking down the walls is obviously going to be so much better than not. But I just wanted to let you know the results of the test, because obviously it's kind of useful, maybe? It's kind of useful because then you kind of know you kind of think to yourself, maybe if I do this, then I can prevent myself from being murdered by an enemy army that's coming, and maybe prevent myself from getting taken prisoner. That's the kind of thing I'm thinking of here. So like contingency plans, contingency plans are pretty important in these kinds of situations as well. I mean, goodness knows, I really should have used a couple of contingency plans myself in this series, because I have gotten taken prisoner a few times, and that is obviously something that you never really want, is it? No. So generally, no. I was almost going to get murdered by that guy with the two-handed axe. That would have been really, really bad. But thankfully, no. I was able to survive. But yeah, so that's the reason why I say, if you're going to end up losing your entire army instead of doing an auto-resolve, then obviously doing the auto-resolve is going to be better. But it may just end up that you losing 60 units or so and then having a bunch of wounded is going to result in your actual capture eventually, because maybe the army is going to be able to catch up with you due to your disorganized state or something like that. Maybe you don't have a high tactics skill or something, and then you're going to be in a situation where it's basically no win, and you didn't stay in the garrison and wait for some time or whatever. People make mistakes, I make mistakes, it happens. But I just thought that was interesting information, and if that helps you out, then good. That's pretty good. The knowledge just makes us all just that little bit better. And yeah, I mean, it's obvious that you're going to lose more and so on if you don't take down the walls, but I wanted to see exactly in the amount of numbers what that would be. So I think that was pretty good. Anyway, we've taken Lycaron, which is actually pretty nice. Marinia Castle, Chinopsis Castle, Melion Castle. I'm going to take all of those off screen because we've seen those. We've seen those many, many times before, and I think it is about time that we kind of solidify our territory in this area while the Khuzait are in a truce with us. And this is the overall look of the world map. The Botanians are still dramatically stronger than pretty much anyone else. Anyway, that will be it. I thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.